Hey folks, welcome back to Fireside with the Colonels. It's Chris Wyatt in Central Pennsylvania and Wynand du Toit in South Africa. Wynand, there you go. I put you on mute because your cough was coming through during the intro. Wynand, how are you?
Good evening, Chris. No, it's going well.
Excellent.
It's just cold here in South Africa, winter time. And there's a cold front approaching the Cape, so the whole country is cooling down hectic.
I saw that. There's flooding in the Western Cape. You know, that climate change, that drought in the mother city. Wait, the reservoirs are over 100% full. I guess that story didn't work very well. If you remember that story from a couple years ago, Cape Town, climate change is why there's no water. Never mind the poor water usage, the taps that leak 35% of the water, the misuse of the water. It's climate change. But we noticed this year that the reservoirs are overflowing. Of course, in the Eastern Cape, Nelson Mandela Bay, they are out of water. Day zero is here. That's pretty scary stuff.
Yeah. Their main supply dam is empty, can't pump from it anymore. There's a couple of days left with some of the other dams in the area. But then it's it. And then there's going to be problems.
No doubt. Hey, well, let me say welcome to all the folks who've joined us this morning and this evening in South Africa. Maybe I should be 2 or 3 minutes late all the time. By the way, started late courtesy of me, folks. I had a board meeting and I tried to break away from it, but it ran a bit longer. So we started a couple minutes late. So that's all on me. But we had 87 people waiting for us before we even started. So maybe in the future I'll start a couple minutes late. Anyway, but seriously. So listen, here's the question. You know, I mean, look, I'm going to ask you to be honest with me. Okay, come on, just be honest with me. I know. This is a South African tradition. So tell me, how many millions of US dollars do you have stuffed in your furniture in your living room? I'm just curious because when I visit Uppington, I'd like to, pick up a little cash.
Yeah. No, 3 million.
3 million. Okay.
Yeah. I was accused this weekend of receiving payment from the CIA up to 3 million a month.
3 million a month? Oh my goodness. I'm
better off than Cyril Ramaphosa at the moment.
I would say. Listen, I work in the intelligence community. I don't know of any U.S. intelligence agency that pays any source that kind of money, no matter how good they are. So that alone just shows you what a stupid comment it was to begin with. But so you've been accused of $3 million a month, and of course the question I've got here then is: are you keeping it in your lounge chair? Is it in your sofa? Because I take my money, I take the money that I get, from big game hunting, because they pay me millions of dollars for big game hunting here in Central Pennsylvania, where they go after elk, and I wrap it in plastic. I put it under the cushion in the seat. It lifts my spine. It takes some of the pressure off the lower back. So that's why I keep the money there instead of in a bank.
Yeah, well, I put it in my bank.
Okay.
The bunk.
In the bunk.
And but it's by now, after all this, almost 2 years of receiving 3 million a month, I cannot actually watch TV anymore.
It's too much money.
Yeah, it's now reached the ceiling, But how ridiculous one can be. But yeah, I think that whole thing was a big mistake. That should have been brought into the open a long time ago. Now, the people around him knew about it, but the population didn't know about it, and that's going to cause a heck of a problem by the end of this year when they have to elect the new executives for the ANC. And this was released, and I can assure you, Chris, no matter how many times Cyril explained and how good his reasoning is, the uneducated masses is going to stick onto this thing like hell. And Cyril is not going to recover from this. He's gone.
This is people are saying this is an Nkonhla moment. Well, I don't think there's a comparison because Zuma survived Nkonhla. He didn't get dismissed over that corruption and theft of state resources, and he lives in a palatial mansion rather than the room reserved for him at the Escort Correctional Facility, which is where he should be right now. Should be serving out his sentence there, but he's not. And why he's not, the frustration of justice is still an interesting prospect. But yeah, Cyril Ramaphosa is not going to be prosecuted by the National Public Prosecutor. Wait. Oh, the Busisiwe Makwabane was relieved the day after she sent 31 questions to Cyril. That's not fishy or suspicious at all, is it now? Oh, man.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
It's interesting. In South Africa, currently, it more tends to the point of who is the culprit. And, it reminds of Animal Farm. Some animals are more equal than others.
Some pigs are better than other pigs.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I think we are going to see this physically playing out more and more in the next couple of months. But yes, we will watch it closely. But that was a dumb mistake to keep it quiet by Cyril. The moment it happened, he should have said something about it. He should have made it public. But I think he knew what the reaction of the public would be.
Yeah. Yeah, but the problem with that, I think, Wynand, is that bad news doesn't get better with age, and first off, he shouldn't be a crooked thief. I mean, let's just start with that. I mean, the explanation, Melanie Verwoerd, trying to carry the water in News 24. Well, not you too, Cyril. I mean, no, maybe it's, it's payments for big, because people fly in with bags of cash to South Africa, circumventing the Forex controls, circumventing the currency regulations, and hand millions of dollars of cash so they can hunt Hemsbach and freaking Cape Buffalo. Give me a freaking break. That's not even plausible to begin with. Who hides money in their furniture except drug dealers and thieves and money launderers? That's the only people that do that. I mean, look, even if you and I saved every rand and penny we had our entire lives, we wouldn't fill our sofa from our labors over a lifetime. Cyril Ramaphosa, and it may be 8 million. It was 60 to 120 million rand we're talking about here. We know for sure it's at least $4 million. And here's the thing. It's stuffed in furniture. The theft is made. He doesn't report it to the police. It's not in a bank. There's no paperwork filed for foreign currency, which is required for that large amount. And it's not reported. Then he abuses the state security services, using them to investigate this and keep this hush-hush under a part of the government that's entirely under his control with no oversight from Parliament, from anybody else. The whole thing, this guy is as crooked as the day is long, and he's finally been caught red-handed. All of those fools in December of 2017, Ramaphosa, and I said, no. This guy's been deputy president for 8 years. He is not a businessman. He has simply been handed his wealth as a consequence of patronage. He is a rabble-rousing unionist, and that's all he is, with a big mouth, and he is nothing. There's nothing to him. He's an empty, cheap suit, and here we are. He's an empty, cheap suit who is leading South Africa into oblivion and been caught red-handed. The rot starts at the head.
I heard something the other day, and that was an article or something. I read it somewhere, where they say that there are more black millionaires in South Africa than white millionaires.
There are.
And not one have earned it on an honest way.
Well, that's a pretty fair statement. There might be one or two. But yeah, pretty much across the board, this is patronage puppies. That's what I call them, patronage puppies. They're handed everything. They earn nothing. And you know what? This is what's sad. And let me say why this is so sad for you, Vine, because before apartheid ended, during the 1980s, you had people who, some of them were racist, and who made the argument that blacks couldn't govern, that they weren't capable of governing. I take issue with that. There are black folks who can't govern. It's a question of culture and political culture. But the ANC is proving these people correct. The ANC cannot and will not and does not want to govern. Its purpose is just like the famous book written by Michaela Wrong about Kenya's corruption. It's our turn to eat. And they will eat like locusts everything they can get their hands on. South Africa for the ANC is about 500,000 cadres, or cadres as you guys like to pronounce it, not 59 million South Africans. And that's the crux of the problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, but nowhere in Africa, from the 60s, you'll find a successful black government, except in Botswana.
Well, I was going to say, and that's going to crap the last 2 years under Eric Masisi.
Yes. And so the warnings that was predicted by Verwoerd and even P.W. Botha was quite, and Jaap Murray? Jaap Marais, yes, was quite correct in what they are saying.
Wasn't
every word.
Wasn't that fun? An American was reminding you of a South African.
No, I'm not with you.
No. I said you couldn't think of his name. Isn't it funny that an American was able to help you remember his name, Jaap Marais?
Yeah, no, but it's great. No, I know, I knew him, Jaap, well enough, but I got to think twice here. I got to think what to say in English,
and I
must remember the name. So it's and I'm 64 years old.
Shh! Don't tell anybody that. You don't look that age. You're looking good for your age. But you were saying, I cut you off very rudely. You were talking about what was happening.
Yeah, I think that is the trend in Africa. I mean, I've been to a lot of African countries, and everywhere you see the decay. I mean, I was in Congo, Brazzaville, and it is safe. It is, people are not violent, not this generation, because they need people to invest and to develop and all those stuff. But there was a time in 1960 when things were very violent in that country. But to go there now, you see all those locomotives standing there for years on end. Trees are growing through them. And just the complete collapse. And you can see how nice it worked. It used to work. And now everything is just gone. And if you have said that it will happen in South Africa, people always said, no, it will never happen in South Africa. Why not? Because our economy is too strong. But they haven't considered the ANC's capability of stealing, and the Guptas and everybody else. And now there's nothing. It's gone. So now we are going exactly the same route. You know, and all of a sudden in South Africa in the last couple of weeks, months, there's a lot of people sort of standing up and call for change, call for unification of the smaller political parties and court orders and all those type of stuff.
And
it's too late.
And accountability, maybe.
Yeah, and it's too late.
It is too late.
They have waited 5 years too long.
Agreed.
With this action.
100%. This should have happened a long time ago, before the last national elections.
Correct. Now they are planning on doing a lot of stuff in 2024. The question is,
who will survive?
Are we going to see 2024?
Who will survive to 2024 is the question, other than the cadres. Yeah. That's the thing. You know, Wyatt, when I started my YouTube program a couple of years ago during the lockdown, just when the lockdown started, I exhorted South Africans to go to the polls in municipal elections in 2021, because I said you can wrest all these municipalities from ANC control, and you can show South Africans of all ethnicities, of all groups, that other folks can lead legitimately, honestly, and deliver services. Because services is where people see government directly. You know, if you don't have water, you don't have electricity, which are provided by the state, and your roads have potholes, that's the thing that hits you first. The crime, all of that locally. It's not the big geopolitical pictures, national budgets. People don't really see that on a daily basis. And I said, you got to go to the polls. And what do we get? 31% turnout for the polls. And people are talking about the ANC got, 46% of the vote. That's nonsense. The ANC got 13% of the vote of eligible voters. That means that only 1 out of 10 South Africans eligible to vote pulled the lever for that decrepit racketeering party. But South Africans didn't go out and vote. The only party that improved was the Freedom Front Plus, and they're still a very small party. What a disaster. This was a chance to change things. To me, it was the last chance, and I'm very concerned about the welfare and safety of South Africans going forward from today.
Yeah, you're right. But talking about potholes, I saw the newspaper clipping today where a municipality where they announced that they are going to replace all potholes.
Replace potholes? You mean repair? I think they meant repair.
But they used the word replace.
With what, other potholes? Oh, dear God. It's, at some point you have to laugh, but then I don't have to drive down the street and break my axle on those potholes.
But But you must remember, Chris, that we South Africans can laugh about everything.
Oh,
it makes
indeed.
us angry. It makes us crazy, but we will make a funny thing out of it, and we will laugh. We always laugh.
Yeah, the sense of humor amongst South Africans is epic. It's legendary, particularly amongst the Cape Coloreds. Those guys can be very entertaining. They are funny as all get out. Pardon the expression, but they're funny as cock. You know, they're really hilarious, Cape Coloreds, generally speaking. I mean, it's a lot of fun chatting with folks down there. Hey, let's shift for a second. We can come back and talk about the disaster more, but I want to talk about something, and I don't know if it's big on your plate, but it's huge on mine. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an all South African United Rugby Championship final. The Stormers steal one from Ulster in the 85th minute as Warwick Gelant slides across with the try, and then Monty Libak, who missed 2 conversions, and then a 17-foot drop goal he missed from right in front of the post. I'm still shaking my head on that one. Monty Libak, who's been money all season, goes dry, but then in extra time in the 87th minute, Monty Libak lines it up, kicks it through, and then the Irish are like, TMO. There's no TMO on penalty conversion or on try conversions. But the Stormers come away with it 17-15. And the day before, an epic Titanic clash up there in Leinster in Dublin at RDS Arena. The Bulls go to Ireland and they pip them. They beat them 27-26. So the Bulls have to travel back to South Africa now. And they have to go to the mother city of Cape Town at DHL Greenpoint Stadium next week, 7:30 local. And it's going to be an all South African final. People said that South Africa had no business being in this European competition. They weren't competitive. South African rugby was dead. But I think this kind of tells a different story. I'm excited. I'm really thrilled. Going to be watching. Are you going to be watching this? Does it interest you at all?
Yes, of course. I have been watching, by the way, both games this weekend. And but I must say, when they left the Southern Hemisphere competition, the Super Rugby.
Yep.
Yes. It worried a lot of us.
Yes.
Because the traditional strength between the Southern nations and stuff. And then they actually went up north, and the first season wasn't going well.
Are you talking about when the Cheetahs and the Southern Kings were up there?
Yes.
The Cheetahs were 12-8 the first season, went to the playoffs, but they weren't impressive. Southern Kings were doormats. The second season, the Cheetahs were 8-12. The Southern Kings didn't win a game. So, yeah, that's a fair point. But then this season, well, actually, to add to that, this season when the South African sides first went up there, it looked like a disaster. I mean, the Stormers lost 2 games that they were ahead by 18 and 21 points to nil. They lost them. Then they had a draw, and they won 1 out of 4 games up there. It looked like a disaster. They come back and win almost every other game the rest of the season. But, yeah, anyway, go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
But the Stormers game against Ulster was interesting for me because I was watching it, and as after the game, as the players came off the field, I noticed a very familiar face, Dwayne Vermeulen.
Yeah.
And I thought, is he playing for Ulster? Well,
Yes.
I haven't seen him the whole game.
Yeah. That's you make an interesting point there. I did color commentary and play-by-play, where I watch the game and then I just come on screen and put the score and the tries and tell people what's going on. And a lot of people tune in because they like the enthusiasm, but 3,700 tuned in to watch me do that during that game. It was pretty cool, 3,700. But that's a point I made. I'm like, Dwayne Vermeulen's on the pitch. I don't think we've called his number all day until he got a penalty 5 meters out. That's the first time I called his name. He was not noticeable. So people talking about, who's his replacement? Well, we've got Jasper Wies out there, and we've got Evan Ruiz for the Stormers. And we've got fine young players that can fill that slot. I've always been a huge Dwayne Vermeulen fan, always. And I'm not saying he's past it, but his best days probably are behind him.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Whether his heart was in the game.
Oh, fair point. Okay. You're not accusing Dwayne Vermeulen of throwing the game. I know. You're not accusing him of throwing the game, are you? We have a new controversy in URC right here, started by Wynand and Toit.
Yeah.
My goodness.
That was my thought.
Yeah.
Immediately upon the finishing end of the game. But yes, this coming weekend we will be watching. It will be a tremendous game, I think. Power against power. But the Stormers got a problem.
They do.
the psychological problem.
Okay.
I don't know whether they are able to play a good game again. Although they didn't play too well last Saturday.
No.
Maybe they can do it. But for me, any team that wins is okay. I'm traditionally a Stormer fan.
Yep.
But when we play against other countries, I support any South African team.
Exactly.
This coming weekend, I will sit quietly in my corner and watch which way the game is going.
Oh, I won't be quiet. I won't be quiet at all.
Yeah, but okay. This coming weekend, I'm looking after the kids. The wife is going to her parents for a visit, so I got to be home. I cannot go and join a crowd, so I'll be home alone, sort of.
Well, you probably can't
Except
go.
for the kids.
You probably can't go to the game anyway. First off, only 50% capacity, and only those who've been jabbed 37 times.
I mean, going to a nice pub where they.
Oh, yeah. Going to a pub or.
With the rest of
Gotcha.
the guys,
Well, you know, that's the thing. In
Yeah.
2011, when I went to the Rugby World Cup, I had no tickets when I went to New Zealand. None for the games. And I managed to get a ticket the first game the day after I arrived. The next morning, I went to Wales versus Samoa, I think it was, in Hamilton. And I bought a ticket off of some guy that was selling it right there. And then I went online that night and bought the tickets for the rest of the stuff. But I told people, they said, what are you going to do in New Zealand? I said, if I don't get a ticket, I'll find a pub and I'll drink and I'll enjoy the game because the atmosphere will be just like being at a game. It'll be a lot of fun. I mean, that's the thing about rugby, which is pretty cool. You can do that. But here's the thing. Okay, go ahead.
You must remember, it's sometimes better in a pub, Chris, because you saw it on the big screen, which they zoom in, and you don't see all the finer details in the stadium.
That's true.
So if you've got a nice atmosphere, a pub that is really into it, then it's actually better.
Yeah, and you're not broiling in the sun or getting soaked in the rain, and you get commentary from the commentators, which can be good if it's the right people. Speaking of which, I recently had Joel Stransky on my channel for an interview. I interviewed him back in February. You know, he's a well-known announcer, of course, and the guy that won it with the drop kick in '95 at the World Cup. But, okay, so here's this weekend. Here's the thing. Stormers fan through and through. Have always been a VP Uleka Ding, always been a big fan of Western Province and of Stormers. And I always pull for them regardless who they play against. But here's the thing. The Stormers have not looked in form in the two victories they've had in the playoffs. They stole this game. They didn't deserve this win. The first 10 minutes, yeah. And then they just went to sleep, and they were terrible for a long period of time. And they're very fortunate to come away with it. But I'm not going to complain. I'm thrilled to death they got the win, and I'll take it. The Bulls have looked very good. They played well against the Sharks and won that game with a drop goal in the 84th minute. And then they went to Leinster and they dismantled Leinster. The score was not as close as it looked. I mean, the Bulls had total control of that game for most of the game. Did you want to jump in there and then I'll finish?
The X factor.
Yeah. Travel.
Jake White.
Jake White. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but Jake White's not on the pitch.
No, he's not. But his strategy, he's like Rassi.
Yeah.
They think out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the Stormers' problems will be next weekend.
Yeah.
In the end, it's going to be the coaches that's going to decide who's winning this game.
Well, I don't disagree with you at all. I've told people for ages that the thing about rugby is it's one sport where coaching makes all the difference. And the perfect example I give of this is you look at England, the 2015 World Cup. They didn't even get to the knockout stages. They were in the qualifying pool and they didn't win enough games, so they got knocked out. Stuart Lancaster's a good rugby coach. He knows the game. He did very well with England up until that stage, but they bounced out. He's sacked, and Eddie Jones is hired. Eddie Jones comes in with almost the exact same team, only one or two minor changes, and he runs on an 18-game international test, ties the record with the All Blacks for 18 consecutive wins before he's defeated. I mean, that's just a coaching change. Gary Gold comes into the U.S., inherits a team from John Mitchell, which during his tenure went 9-8, and Gary Gold goes 9-0 in test. his first season. Now, we've run into trouble since then because of COVID and not getting play, and the U.S. has not looked particularly good. But it just shows you that coaching can make all the difference. The philosophy, the way that they approach the game. You can have all the talent on the pitch and not be a winner. I mean, Leinster was defeated because of the strategy of the Bulls. The Bulls' strategy wore them down and broke them apart. And at the same time, the Bulls played an open game as best they could when they had their opportunities, which was really nice. That's kind of, I told people that the South African sides playing in Europe might lead to a mishmash of styles. So traditional phase after phase, hit the line, push through, brute force that South African rugby is accustomed to, might mix it up a little bit with the more wide open and kicking game that we see in Europe. And that's kind of what we've seen. And I'm kind of excited about it. But here's my concern this weekend. If you look at it, odds makers, I'd say the Bulls are going to win, even though I'm a Stormers fan, because they're playing better and they're coming off a big high in Leinster. The only drawback for the Bulls, and I don't know if it'll be a factor, because we always hear the complaining about the travel, when they used to go to Australia or New Zealand. But of course, there it's not just 12 hours, but it's also several time zones. Here, you're not changing time zones, but you do fly back 12 hours. Maybe the travel might have an impact on fitness. We'll see. But right now, I'd say that the Bulls have the advantage, even though it's in Cape Town.
Yeah, but just be careful what you are saying on air. You might be crucified when you arrive here in August and September.
Yeah, but I have to go to Cape Town and I have to go to Pretoria, so I'll be crucified either place.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that the scales are in favor of the Bulls at this stage. But for my side, primarily because Jake White will know what to do.
Yeah.
And that makes the difference.
Yeah, I agree. And, quite frankly, the Bulls are accustomed to success. So they had a few really bad years there in a row, but then Jake White comes in, they turn around and win back-to-back Currie Cups. Although they were embarrassed by the Cheetahs in Bloemfontein this week, and that was embarrassing. It was 28-0 in the first half. But that's because squads are split. When they get to the Currie Cup final, I think it's going to be a little bit different. We'll have a full complement of Bulls there, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, they turned it around pretty quickly, and they have a long tradition in recent history of doing well. Whereas the Stormers, I didn't realize this. It had been 12 years since they won a playoff game. It didn't seem that long. Now they won 2 back-to-back, so they're still, getting a taste of being winners, and it's long overdue, but hopefully they can close it out. I'd love to see the Stormers win this. I'd be so stoked.
But because the biggest problems at the Stormers are the management and the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. Because for the last couple of years, there has been fights this way, that way, on the management at the background and the selling of the stadium and all those type of stuff. And the Stormers, the Western Province, was not a rugby union that was financially in trouble. On the contrary, management pushes it into trouble.
Yeah.
But I think we are sitting with Western Province very much like the same as the ANC currently in government in South Africa. I think somebody else ate as well. And that's the reason why they are, primarily reason why they are in trouble.
Yeah, no, it makes all the sense in the world. They, their former head of rugby there was accused of a lot of things and driving the union into bankruptcy, and it was unnecessary. But then South African rugby unions also got all kinds of financial problems. Remember a couple of years ago when Rossi took over, his first test match was here in Washington, D.C. against Wales. The only reason that the Springboks took that match is because they didn't have any money. And the U.S. Rugby Union guaranteed a $750,000 payout if they came and played that game. So, yeah, they've got their own challenges. But maybe I love talking rugby all day, and we're having fun with this, but we're losing viewers like shedding viral corona particles. So maybe we should switch back to about South Africa and military topics here. But I started a new segment recently. I started a new segment recently called the Colonel's Battle Brief, in which I talk about global conflicts that no one's talking about. I brought up Myanmar, Cabo Delgado, Central African Republic, and then Tigray. I didn't really talk Tigray this time. Talk a little bit about Somalia, and then Ukraine, of course. People aren't really talking about these conflicts, and I think it's important that we probably discuss these and let people know what's going on around the world, because politicians, when it's appropriate for them to use it politically, then it'll suddenly be a big issue. But until then, they don't really care. And I think that's really been the trend in international news media. Is that something you've noticed as well?
Yeah, Chris, this Ukraine-Russian conflict is going to blow up. The thing that is bothering me on the world issue is there's only very few world leaders talking peace or wanting to talk peace.
Yep.
It is as if the world is pushing for war. Ukraine got no chance in hell to beat Russia. Still, somebody is persuading Ukraine to keep on fighting and losing people. Why is that? Why haven't I heard the most powerful country in the world say, let's talk? Never has the United States mentioned anything about talking peace or making peace or stopping the war or whatever. All they talk about is money and weapons to Ukraine.
Yep.
And now the Russian assumption on, as long as you keep on pushing in weapons, people are going to keep on dying. And Russia has reached the point, that's a dangerous point. Russia has reached the point where they got no alternative left than to go nuclear. That's a scary thought. But if we look at it, and we look at the tensions between Israel and Iran, and Turkey, Israel, Turkey, the Greeks on the one side, then it spells some danger for us, because this thing can go anyway. And we are not separated from the rest of the world. We are part of the world. So it will have a tremendous influence on every country in the world. Now I've heard that Russia has now formed or signed a military agreement with Venezuela to put Russian bases there, which will mean Russian missiles. So the whole thing is playing up. The tension is building and building, and no one with real power or influence is there to say, guys, stop this. We are going to end mankind or the world as we know it. My assumption is that we are very close to a total world war. Very close, and I mean before the end of the year.
Well, that's a pretty frightening prospect, but you've hit on something that's quite apparent and something I've talked about extensively. So I appreciate you bringing it up, and that's that Joe Biden has never once offered publicly to mediate, to discuss a peaceful resolution, to prevent the conflict from happening. He simply ignored what was happening in the Ukraine when Putin moved 70,000 troops to the border 6 weeks after he became president last year in March. He ignored that. He didn't offer any more money to Ukraine, didn't offer any weapons or any joint military exercises or U.S. show of anything. He simply allowed it to unfold until late in the year when his popularity dropped into the 30s in polls. And then suddenly late in 2021, Ukraine is important. And he brought it up on the table. And we need to worry about Ukraine. And then he stoked the fires. It's almost like he was churning the coals in there, raising the temperature, attacking Russia, instead of saying, hey, Russia and Ukraine have some differences that need to be ironed out. Let's host a summit and get these folks together. And he's never once talked about it. He just wants more and more and more and more money. $54 billion has been poured into Ukraine. Now, fine. Excuse me. Something that's not talked about here. And look, I'm not a fan of aid. I prefer trade versus aid, but a small, aid can play a role, particularly in security. But Ukraine, in this supplemental bill that was just approved by Congress, Joe Biden asked for $34 billion. Congress gave him $40 billion in a single bill. That's in addition to the funding that's already gone to Ukraine this year, $2.6 billion in budgeted plus $1 billion supplemental, another $1 billion supplemental, $900 million supplemental, plus who knows what else. So it all comes to $54 billion. But this $40 billion includes $8.8 billion in economic aid. How do you give economic aid to a country that's being bombed into oblivion and their infrastructure being destroyed as we speak? That doesn't make any sense. That's the first point. Second point is if you look at 2020 or 2019, the last reliable year we have in this, the amount of money that went to the 10 largest recipient countries for total aid, that's economic, that's security, that's everything under the sun. And we're just talking economic aid for Ukraine. But the total amount of money that went to the 10 largest recipients in sub-Saharan Africa was less than $8.8 billion. So Ukraine is getting more money to fix a broken economy that's being destroyed by bombs and missiles right now than all of sub-Saharan Africa got in total assistance in a single year. Somebody is putting up smoke and mirrors and distracting us from what's really going on around here. It's not about what's happening. It's about what they want us to see happening. And this whole Ukraine, everywhere I go, it's just ridiculous. I'm with Ukraine, this, that. No, these people aren't with Ukraine. If they were Ukraine, this conflict never would have happened.
Yeah. I think that draws a lot of attention worldwide now, of course, is the school shootings in the United States, which is a sad thing that is happening. But somebody the other day said, if they have only spent half the money that they are giving to Ukraine to prop up school protection, or installed some programs for protection of schools, this wouldn't have happened. And it seems as if Ukraine is now more important than the citizens of the United States.
Well, you'll get no argument from me. That clearly seems to be what's going on here. And, of course, everything is Vladimir Putin's fault, not Joe Biden's fault. They're still going on about the petrol prices, trying to tell me that it's all Vladimir Putin's doing. But 75% of the price increase in petrol came before Ukraine ever happened, after Trump left office.
But you must also remember, go and have a look at Ukraine on a world map. Picture the whole world as one color, and gives Ukraine another color. Then it's a tiny spot on the earth. How can such a small country, relatively speaking, be responsible for increase in food shortages, increase in fuel prices, etc.? There's something bigger on the play here.
Yep.
I mean, Ukraine is not the major exporter of wheat. That is Russia.
Russia, the United States, and Australia.
Yeah. In other words, by putting sanctions on Russia, they've actually created the shortfall on wheat.
Well, they've exacerbated an existing problem. They made it worse.
They made it worse. So, yeah, it's a very difficult situation, Chris, and people are talking about it, about what is going to happen and what's in the future. But, I went to the local mall on Sunday morning just to buy a couple of things. And it was 2 bags, nothing special.
Yep.
Almost 1,000 rand.
I was going to say 1,000 rand would be my guess. Yeah, that's insane. It's insane. And most South Africans don't have that kind of money.
How are we going to live?
Well, I can tell you that, as a retiree, we get cost of living allowances. My first year, I didn't get anything because the way the Army does it, if you get out after June, you get no cost of living allowance. They claim you got it during your pay during the year, but that's nonsense because people from January, June also got it. So, but I got nothing the first year. Second year, I got like 0.5% in 2021. So for this year, they gave us a 5.5% cost of living allowance before the year started. So my retirement pay went up by 5.5%. But that amount of money that accrues in my check each month from January through December, I've already exhausted all of that money by the end of February this year for increased prices in foodstuffs, my electricity, my gas, and my petrol bill. It's all gone. And everything now is just digging deeper in my pockets. So there's a lot of things I'm not doing. Look, I'm not starving. I'll survive this. But a lot of people are really, really suffering. If I'm sitting around going, well, should I do this or do that? I can only imagine people on the bottom of the economic scale who are scraping by and are really struggling, especially in places like South Africa, where 46% of the population lives on public assistance, on welfare. It must be horrific for people living in townships or the rural countryside in KZN that only get, a few $100 per month. They must really be hurting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I watched a program last night on Carte Blanche. About a certain place and the conditions under which the people are living is horrific. And the only way they can survive and make a living is by selling drugs. So this world situation is forcing the world down and down and down. I mean, it can't continue like that. And what's going to happen, Gus? Can you blame a person for stealing if he wants to feed his kids? And where is he going to stealing? On the farm near his place. The farmer is going to protect his property, and in the end there's going to be violence. I think South Africa especially, and the rest of Africa, but South Africa is in for not only a problem, they're only for a huge shock, because everybody in South Africa is living like they've always done before. They don't see this danger that is being posed for us by the increasing price rises. I mean, a year ago, fuel was around about 16, 17 rand a litre. It will be in July 27 rand a litre. That's 10 rand a litre more.
Well, ours goes by gallons, and when Trump left office, it was $1.89 per gallon, so that's just under 30 rand per gallon, not liter, per gallon. So there's, 3 liters in that. So that was probably about 10 rand is what we're paying, here in the U.S. per liter, roughly speaking. It was $1.89. Now it's $5.10. Just over a year later under Biden and what's going on here. It's just crazy stuff. Hey, listen, there's a point you made there about people in desperation. I'm long been one of these people that refutes the leftist argument that poverty breeds crime. And let me make my point clear, because it's going to sound like it's counter to what you just said. It's not. I think we're in agreement. Under normal circumstances, when people are poor, they don't turn to crime, at least as long as their basic needs are being met. But this isn't a normal situation. This is a situation like refugees at the end of the Second World War, where there's no food and people are stealing apples from orchards and eating grass and things like that. So this is a situation where the state decisions have pushed people into extreme poverty. And we have a situation where people are starving to death in South Africa. In Nelson Mandela Bay, we had reports of 15 infants and newborns who starved to death from acute malnutrition and starvation because the ANC-led social department there returned 62 million rand to the national legislature that was meant to feed hungry children in Nelson Mandela Bay. Thousands of kids going hungry. This is a situation in which I will concede that it is causing higher levels of crime, particularly petty crime, because people are desperate for food. They're desperate to survive, and I can't blame someone. I don't accept it morally, but I can empathize if you're starving to death and you steal food. I empathize with that. I don't agree with it, but I empathize with it, particularly when it's all a creation of the state. It's totally unnecessary. All the nonsense we're dealing with is unnecessary right now, whether it's the spicy cough from China or it's these constant conflicts or all these distractions. All of this is state generated, and people are suffering immeasurably.
But Chris, and going with it, his incompetency right through. I mean, the people, the export. There's export is a huge part of farming in South Africa.
Indeed.
Export for European markets, etc. they are now exporting through Maputo Harbor because Maputo Harbor is functioning.
Unlike Durban.
Unlike Durban, PE, and even Cape Town. I mean, what the heck is going on?
Well, the ANC's running things. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the next thing is that the roads will go to nothing on the way to Maputo. It's not going to be repaired, but it's chaos.
Yep.
At the moment. The incompetency of getting the harbor and the railways functioning again properly is just as if they don't care. I mean, when did the floods in Natal occur?
That was April. Yeah, it was back in April.
The government promised R1 billion.
It hasn't been touched.
It hasn't been touched.
Not one rand has been requested.
And all the people that lost their houses are now living outside somewhere.
Or in primary schools and are no longer holding session.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, if I,
all this is,
go ahead.
Is contributing. All this is contributing to the point where we are heading to a total collapse and anarchy in South Africa.
Yeah.
And you know what? 80% of my people don't see it.
That's crazy.
80% of our people still believe it's going to get right. Ramaphosa is the correct president. Just give them time. We mustn't be too harsh and everything. Eskom is going to recover and everything is going to be fine.
Yeah, right. Eskom. Yikes. When you say our people, are you talking about Afrikaners? Or are you talking about Sightlanders? Or I assume you're talking about Afrikaners, 80%.
Yeah, Afrikaners. Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm clear and understand. But let me go back to something we were talking about a little while ago. So here's where, you know, something.
If I say more, explain it better.
Yeah.
Then I'm already labeled as a racist, but then it will even contribute to that.
Well, but don't forget, not just a racist. You're a CIA stooge too, apparently, to the tune of $3 million a month.
Yeah, so I'm in the clear. I have enough money. You know?
You know, here's the thing: if you're a CIA stooge, why did they let you rot in Angola all those months? Back during the border war, you know, why did they get you out? Why did they get you out? People just, you know, their cognitive dissonance. You know, I mean, if you were a CIA stooge, why did they leave you in there so that somebody had to put the bone from someone else in your arm to repair you and leave you in that cell? It's just anyway. But let me go back to the topic we were talking about a while ago. You were talking about there's definitely something afoot here, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but let's be honest here. The moment that Ukraine was invaded, within 72 hours, we're already hearing about food shortages, sunflower oil, wheat shortages. The Russians hadn't even conquered territory yet, you know, and this is going on. And it's February. Okay, how can we have wheat shortages when Ukraine doesn't harvest wheat in February? They harvest it in September, October, November. They don't even plant it in February. They don't plant it until March or April when it gets planted, unless it's winter wheat, and then it comes up during the winter, and it gets harvested in June. Here's the thing. The United States and Australia have immense capacity to grow wheat. In this local area where I'm at, there's a lot of farming here in central Pennsylvania. Last year, maize was the main crop. And this year, guess what the farmers planted? Because they rotate. In the fall, they planted wheat. So most of the fields around here are winter wheat now. They're being harvested in the next month. So we're going to flood the world market with wheat that wasn't being grown last year here in Pennsylvania. Why isn't the United States or Australia planting wheat to take advantage of likely rising prices when Ukrainian wheat would have come in the market in September, October, November? So there's just some nonsense going here. Now, Australia, of course, in the southern hemisphere, so it's winter time there now, but they should have planted winter wheat there so that in 6 months they have a supply of wheat. And people don't realize that Australia is one of the world's major wheat producers for going on a century. In fact, it used to be that these sailing ships would race from Australia back to the UK with their cargo holds full of wheat to feed England because it couldn't feed itself back in the day. And so, you know, this whole thing, and sunflower oil shortages, this is nonsense. Now, we may have those things coming up at some point because of hoarding and because of maldistribution. But the fact that farmers aren't taking advantage of a likely spike in prices, and we're being told there's shortages 72 hours And these weren't predictions. If they were predicting that by October we might have problems in the global grain market, I'd have accepted that as reasonable analysis. But they weren't saying predicting shortages. They were saying there were already shortages, and that doesn't make any sense. I mean, anybody that falls for that, the Ukraine doesn't produce wheat in February. Give me a frickin' break.
Yeah. This whole thing is artificial. It's planned. It's well planned. But I know where you are pushing to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's
I'm not going to go that way. You can do it.
No, I don't go that way either. I mean, that's conspiracy theorist stuff. But I mean, you know, at some point, the conspiracy theorists, they keep getting proven right over the last 2 years. Everything they say is going to come true seems to be coming true. It's quite frightening. Now, I was asked a question here by Corona's Boring Do the Alien Thing. I love his username. He says, could you ask Colonel du Toit where the best strategic place to live in South Africa to weather the coming crap show? I don't know if there is a best place. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But, you know, is there some place that springs to mind that's probably safer and better to weather the storm? Is there a place?
Chris, yeah. We did an appreciation. And because of my background and all my senior guys, is my friends from my era of time. So we are all in the colonel rank level.
Yeah, and you're all seasoned at this stage.
Yeah, and we got together and we spent 21 days in an island situation, no contact with anybody else, and we solely focused on two things. One, okay, let me go back. All the other countries in Africa who got problems during the 60s and 70s, they fled to South Africa. We have reached a stage where there's no country left south of us to flee to. So we said, if the Portuguese that fled in 1975, fled Angola, to Namibia, or at that time Southwest Africa, they were only 250,000. Only 250,000. They filled all the towns in Namibia and even down south to Springbok, Uppington, Olifantshoek, and Kuruman. How large must the area be where we will have to create a safe area for people to move to? That was the first thing. And the other one was, we got to be able to produce food for all those refugees, because we're talking about the potential 1.5 to 3 million refugees, our people only, that needs to go somewhere when violence broke out in the cities. So the only place that can do it is the Northern Cape. People think it's the desert. Yes, to an extent it's desert, but they got the golden lifeline, the Orange River, flowing through the area. And presently, this area, more or less from Gariep Dam down to the coast, can feed 60% of the current population, all races in South Africa. So it's an area that we in fact can produce enough food for the people on a commercial scale, if we can provide electricity, if we can provide fuel to the farmers. And our intention is that farmers should keep on farming,
yeah,
so that we can feed our people. So looking at the Northern Cape, which is the only province that can actually provide independent power for irrigation purposes, of all the provinces in South Africa, got the ability, got enough resources for that, are already producing enough food for 60% of the current population. So this is for us the best area to be. It's also the least populated area in South Africa. So we are not talking of Uppington as in itself. I am in Uppington. It's a strategic move because Uppington is the most strategic town. Interesting wise, we are 800 kilometers from Windhoek, we are 800 kilometers from Cape Town, we are 800 kilometers from George, we are 800 kilometers from Pretoria. So it's fairly central. And it's a strategic place. That's why I moved here. I lived next to the sea. My office was overlooking the sea. But I moved from there to here so that I can start organizing here on the backside. At least when things happen, that we are ready for it, ready for whatever may come our way in the sense of numbers of people that is fleeing this way. So if I want to reply, funny name, nickname,
Corona's boring.
Most place, I would say any place in the Western Free State and the Northern Cape.
All right, that's a fair point. You know, it's interesting.
Excluding Kimberley
Yeah.
and Bloemfontein, of course.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably not where you want to go. Certainly not Bloemfontein. Kimberley also, I think, is questionable too. But yeah, outside that, those are fair points and well stated. You know, of course, the Northern Cape was the destination initially of the Bosters, the Nama, and the Griquas, and then they all went and moved through the Northern Cape and went a little bit further. The original four trekkers. And then I guess we may be seeing a 21st century trek coming the way things are going. I think that's what's coming up here. But there's a couple points here in the chat. Let me get to them very quickly here. I was asked a question. Where did it go? And then there was a statement. Oh, yeah. Rick Heron says, where does our toilet paper come from? I don't know where South Africa's toilet paper comes from, but the United States, which has some of the world's largest forestry resources, no longer makes its toilet paper. We get most of our toilet paper from Brazil. Why? Because it's a low margin commodity and it isn't worth the profit margins for the U.S. So, you know, when Brazil had problems early in the COVID issue, we ran out of toilet paper. And then the other question here is, are the American people preparing for recession? What are the general feeling? Good, Nancy. I think you had a comment there before I get this question. Good.
You made an interesting comment there about toilet paper being cheaper produced in Brazil than in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, it's all about reaching the green levels, the required green levels.
Right, and that's
the United States cut back on the production of oil and all those things that is for climate purposes and green pieces important. And now, by not cutting down trees to make toilet paper, they are importing them from Brazil.
Right.
Because now they can claim, well, they are, what does you call that?
Green friendly. Yeah.
Green friendly. And Brazil gets the negative points because they are cutting down trees.
Mm-hmm.
To make toilet paper for the United States. But the United States are reaching their goals because they are not cutting down trees.
Well, my argument there is not, it wasn't about that, but the point is that because of the regulation that comes in, because of that stupidity, it makes the profit margin so small or negligible that the corporations don't find it worth their while to make it here. It's cheaper for them to buy it elsewhere. So that's intentional. That's a policy-driven decision.
Wait until they have to use newspapers.
Well, as soldiers, we know what that's like to leaves newspaper.
We can use a stone or even a stick or anything or piece of glass, but
exactly.
It's not going to go down with the ladies, you know.
Yeah, they don't like that. Yeah. Now there was another question here. So Carlos Voss, who just became a subscriber, buy a donkey, Carlos, for becoming a subscriber. I appreciate it. Says, are the American people preparing for recession? What are the general feeling and economic outlook for the next year in your opinion? Well, it's fascinating. Most people that I know, and now I've been around the country recently. I just came back from the UK. I covered the London Sevens at Twickenham. My first time at Twickenham, I was over there for that. And then I came back to the States and immediately thereafter flew to Texas. I was in Dallas and Houston, and I'm back here in Pennsylvania. And what I've got to say is that people are just moving about as if nothing is happening. There's grousing about and complaining about the petrol prices and about baby formula, but the average person is just moving along, and I don't think Americans get how perilous the situation is and how close we are to the precipice of a significant recession. This has a feel of an earlier time in my life when I was a young man, when Wyatt was probably going through the qualification course, and that's the Carter years. During the Carter years, the very same sort of feeling was here. I was in high school then, and there was this kind of malaise, and things just kind of hung in the air, and eventually it got really, really bad. Inflation spiked. The prime lending rate in America shot to 15%. That's unheard of. We've had almost 0% prime lending rate for 20 years here. But we're about to slide into a recession, in my view. The Federal Reserve is about to increase interest rates, which will make cash harder to come by and more expensive to borrow, and that will lead to less money for corporations to expand and less money for consumers to buy cars, and homes especially. The home is a big part of our economy. People don't realize how important home construction is, because every home that's built, that means timber manufacturers, drywall manufacturers, nail manufacturers, caulking, windows, glass, all the people plus the transport, the banks that provide the money, all the different parts that come into play here really affects the entire U.S. economy. And when the housing market tanks, it has a big impact on the economy. I think we are headed for a recession. I hope not, but the signs are all there. Certainly, this continued inflation is really devastating people's incomes and their savings, particularly pensioners. Pensioners are screwed. They're really, really screwed. Now, I'm a pensioner, but I'm not really of pension age, but I'm a pension from the military. So my paycheck is fixed unless you want a super chat, then it increases. but other than that, it's kind of fixed. But yeah, my answer to that question is that most Americans don't seem to be aware of the danger in front of them. It's like they're driving down the road and there is a puma or a leopard sitting there in a tree waiting to pounce on them, and they don't even see the leopard.
But that's exactly the same that is happening in South Africa.
Well, there you go.
In 2008, 2009,
the financial crisis,
the Lehman Brothers in the United States, there was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a ripple effect right throughout the world. And I remember that I lost my construction company because of the Lehman Brothers in the United States. And I haven't forgiven them for stealing money, because that cost me my company. Tongue in the cheek. But the point is, whatever happens there is multiplied by 3, 4, 5 times in countries like South Africa.
Yep.
So if you are going into a recession, we are going into starvation.
Yeah. Yep. Now, it's the reason for that. Let me explain to people why that makes a little bit of sense there. But by the way, folks, you're listening to Fireside with the Colonels. Colonel Wyatt Toit from South Africa and myself, Colonel Chris Wyatt from the U.S., retired service members, both serving our nation in capacities continuing past our military service. And we thank you for tuning in. Be sure to smash the like button. It costs you nothing but a moment of your time. Just reach down there and hit it. It doesn't cost you anything. But let me elaborate on the point he just made there about why. And this is the thing so let me tell a little war story here, okay, an actual war story, and show how it relates to this and why. When I was a young officer, a second lieutenant, in fact, sitting in Kuwait after the war, and I'm sitting there going, why in the hell am I here? George Bush said this was about restoring democracy to Kuwait. There's no democracy in Kuwait. The sheikhs run this country, and they treat third country nationals like slaves. There's no democracy. Yeah, we're assuring the world's oil supply. Okay, so I thought about it, and I realized I had an epiphany at that stage, and I was in my early 20s, and I said, the left is screaming that this war is all about oil, all about oil, all about oil. You know what? So what if it is? The reality is that the world relies on the safe, reliable, affordable delivery of energy in order to survive and live in the modern world. Because the modern world runs off electricity. Electricity is generated by hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons and motor transport rely on coal and petroleum. And if the free flow of oil to Europe and to Japan, which is what the Gulf War really had an impact about, if that's necessary, then it must be done. So the oil wasn't for the U.S. coming from Iraq. It was going to, and Iran, it was going to Europe and Japan. We were getting oil from elsewhere, including Saudi Arabia. So I realized that it was geopolitically appropriate, moral, and correct for us to fight a war for oil, even though that's not what it was about. If it was about oil, fine. Because if Europeans and Americans and Japanese stop buying things, who does it affect the most severely? It affects their countries. They can go into recession. Many people may lose their jobs, but people by and large will not be starving in the streets of London, Paris, Washington, or Tokyo because they're in recession. People suffer. But when they stop buying cocoa, when they stop buying grapes, and they stop buying bauxite from Africa and from Latin America and from Asia, the people downrange who live on the margins, people aren't buying their products. They starve. They go into horrible circumstances. And the reality is that, the first things to go in a recession are luxuries. People stop buying fur coats, although I don't know if anybody buys fur coats anymore, but people stop buying chocolate. They stop buying wine. That's a big part of South Africa's economy, the export of wine. Americans will stop buying it if they don't have money. They'll buy California wine, which is cheaper, and frankly, the quality has improved dramatically. So the point here is that what you're saying is the knock-on effect, the second and third order effects of a recession in America is exactly what happened to the planet in 2008, 2009. And if we slide in a recession now, it really has dramatic impact on Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, Mozambique, all across Africa. And people will suffer because of political decisions made in Washington, D.C. And that's sad, but unfortunately, it's a reality. I think we're probably in agreement on that one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. But I wanted to come in earlier. You said...
sorry.
On the thing of the fireside of the colonels.
Yeah.
When you come to visit in August or September, I'll arrange a real fireside.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
With many colonels.
Okay.
And we can have a nice chat, and we have talked about some other stuff which we are going to organize for you here in Uppington, which you can then broadcast, and the people can watch. So yeah, okay. Just before I forgot about that.
No, that's okay. So listen, I'm committed now. I don't really have a choice. I have to come to South Africa in August and September because now a lot of people are expecting me to be there. But I am coming. I'm already started making plans for that trip and how I'm going to work it out. But I've never been to Uppington. I've never been to the Northern Cape. The closest I've been is Kimberley. So I'm really looking forward to that part of the trip. Really excited about it. In fact, today it's not Uppington. It's still the Western Cape, but it is. I mean, it's not the Northern Cape. It's still the Western Cape, but it's on the edge of the Karoo because I haven't spent much time in the Karoo. I'm thinking about going through Prince Albert down south. I mean, I've never been there. I heard it's a nice spot to stop, kind of touristy. But Uppington has never been on my radar screen, but it definitely is now.
Yeah, no, you will have to come here. I mean, Prince Albert is nice. It's a nice weekend place, but it's a little quiet town, too quiet sometimes. I mean, I'm a very quiet guy, and to me, even after 3 days, it started getting a bit hectic because it's too quiet. But Uppington is a great place. You can fly here and, of course, be sitting with the Kalahari at our back. And there's a lot of stuff to do and to see. But I think that you will find more of the traditional Afrikaner in this part of the world than anywhere else.
Fair enough.
The people are extremely nice. They're really friendly, open. I mean, I drive through Uppington and every guy is waving.
That's how it was when I grew up. You wave to people when you drive down there. You wave to the person driving. You walk down the street, you say hello to people. I do that around the world now. People think I'm a nutter.
Yeah.
Especially with this beard, they think I'm homeless.
I mean, even in Mossel Bay, which is not a huge place there in the Southern Cape, people don't greet each other next to the road.
Yeah.
It don't happen. But up here in Uppington, it's still happening. So I got a lot of hope around here. But yeah, I will organize you a great audience here, and the people will love it if we broadcast from here live.
Nah, it'll
Or
be brilliant.
even-
It'll be brilliant. You know, I've already worked it out. When I arrive, because the flights, I'm not sure about the Cape Town flight. I was trying to fly directly to Cape Town because United is starting flights there. But I'll probably wind up going through OR Tambo. But I've already planned out. You know, because you have to fill that card out when you come in, and it says name, and I'll put down Koos Delaray, the Leon van de West Transvaal.
Yeah.
That's who I am, Koos Delaray.
But you can fly from Cape Town or from Joburg to here on Airlink.
I was going to say it would have to be Airlink because Comair is not coming out of business rescue, or as we prefer to call it, bankruptcy hearings here. They're being liquidated now. So that's 42% of all airline seats gone from Kululu and British Airways. Not going to be around anymore. But I suspect someone will sweep in with a lot of money, buy up the assets, and start a new airline would be my expectation.
You know, you must just bear in mind that Fly Safe Air or Safe Air
Yeah,
is a very, very old company.
that's true.
People think of Safe Air when they start doing passenger trips in South Africa. But for years and years, many years ago, they were flying all over Africa. They were always there, but they never did passengers inside South Africa.
Yeah.
But they used to be a company to transport goods all over Africa.
Cargo company.
So they're very well established and a strong company. And that's why they could continue flying or can continue to fly even today. And now they are doing passenger service as well. But we will, as you said, rightfully, we will probably see one or two other airlines rising up during this time.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised to see Gideon Novak leave the rebranded South African Airways and start his own airline again. He's done it before. I wouldn't be surprised. But that's just one name. There's other people in the market that could do it. There's going to be a number of South African pilots. The key, though, is to snatch them up before they disappear to Europe or the U.S. I know it's difficult to get licensed in the U.S. and Europe, but we are short 12,000 commercial pilots in the U.S. All these airlines have been canceling flights. I don't know if you heard my ordeal going to the U.K. and more importantly, the one going to Texas recently. Oh, my goodness. American Airlines, they disgraced the name American. So I went to bed at 11 o'clock, which is early for me, 2300, and my flight was at 7:15 in the morning. I wanted to get a good night's sleep. I was flying to Texas because I had a 4-hour drive once I got there. So I went to bed, and then 11:18, they sent me an email, which I didn't see. I was asleep, and another one 11:23. The first one said, your flight has been canceled. We will rebook it for you. Then 5 minutes later, they sent me another email, and it said, you have to call us to rebook. Well, I'm asleep, so I get up at 4:30 in the morning, get ready to go to the airport. I check my email, and I've got 400 messages since midnight, so I don't see this because it's a previous day. I drive to the airport. I have to pay a toll to go to the airport. All the petrol now, it's $6 a gallon. You pay attention to what petrol costs, and so that cost me some money. I get to the airport. I go in with my bag after paying for parking, park my car in the long-term lot. I go inside, and she goes, oh, that flight's canceled. Okay, what do we do? Well, if you like, we can put you on standby for the flight in 4 hours. You can wait here for 4 hours, and you might get a seat to Philadelphia. And then in Philadelphia, we'll put you on standby for that flight, and you might get a flight to Dallas today. So I could be stranded here, or I could be stranded in Philadelphia, and I could waste my whole day in airports. Yep. I'll tell you what. When's the next flight? Well, this evening. So they put me in the evening flight. I came back. I got in the evening flight. I flew to Dallas directly. I got there, got my bag. It took an hour to get the bag out in Dallas late at night. So by the time I got on the bus and went to the car agency, the hire, to get my rental, it was midnight when I left there. So I was supposed to be there at 2:30 in the afternoon in Houston, but now it's midnight and I'm still in Dallas 12 hours later. So I start driving. About 3 o'clock in the morning, noticed I was tired. Even though Texas has got like 5 lanes for cars, it's wide open prairie like the Highveld. I'm like, I don't want to have an accident. So I pulled into a rest stop, got about 45 minutes sleep, woke up, and headed down. I got to my destination at 5:30 in the morning. Coming back, we got to Dallas. I got there early, checked into the airline, went in the airport. It was a nice gate. And then while I'm sitting there, suddenly I got a message on my phone, which they didn't send me when I went down there. They sent me a text message saying that my gate had changed and my flight was somewhere else. So I went to the other part of the terminal, which is crappy and old. And the flight was delayed. That was delayed again. And now it's scheduled for 12:37 to arrive in Harrisburg. Well, the airport in Harrisburg shuts down at midnight unless the airlines pay them to stay open after midnight. So I'm like, maybe they coordinated for that. So I get on a flight. We fly. We're 1 hour from landing in Harrisburg on a 3-hour flight. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have noticed on the destination map that we are no longer flying to Harrisburg. The Harrisburg airport has shut down the main runway for scheduled maintenance, and they won't open it for us. I'm like, scheduled maintenance? You didn't know this? There was no notice of air traffic management, no NOTAM? I know that's out there. That's required by the aviation community. So they knew that there was no way we could land in Harrisburg, and they flew us and diverted us to Philadelphia. We arrive in Philadelphia at 2 o'clock in the morning. We come out, they say, okay, you can't have your bags. They're staying on the plane. We'll give you a hotel voucher for crappy hotels, but no transportation vouchers. You have to provide your own transport. There's no hotel buses at this hour because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. So $30 to get to a hotel 8 kilometers away, and then I come back about 4 hours later to fly in the morning. This is American Airlines. And then we get on a plane, it's delayed twice. So they cost me 2 days each way, a day each way, and then when I went to London, the same thing. It's just a total disaster. And the reason is, for all this that I was getting to, the point of this story was that they don't have the pilots. And they lied about it. They told us it's maintenance, it's airfield, it's this, it's weather. It's because they fired pilots who refused to get the jab. They got rid of hundreds of pilots, and they don't have enough pilots. And the reason they flew us to Philadelphia is that Dallas is their main operations. They didn't have any crews. They didn't have any pilots available once this flight was delayed because of crew rest. They couldn't manage it. They knew they had spare crews in Philadelphia, and it was in Pennsylvania. So they flew us to Philadelphia and inconvenienced us for their own convenience, and then lied to us. In Europe, that would cost them 400 euros per passenger, but not in the U.S. So anyway, yeah. So, go ahead.
Now, in 2019, my eldest daughter got married in the Netherlands.
Okay.
So it's me, my wife, and the 2 small kids. We are flying over. Cost us around about 40,000 rand.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So the day when we left on Emirates Airlines from Amsterdam, all of a sudden we were already at the gate. There was a technical problem with the plane, and they postponed the flight, and they sent us to a hotel, but they gave us transport. They paid for the hotel, everything, and we were booked into the hotel, and the whole operation to be repeated the next day. And somebody sent me a link about that. If you are stranded there, it's 600 euros. If you are flying, it depends on the distance you have to fly.
Yes.
And when I arrived back in South Africa, I put in a complaint about that. And they paid me 43,000 rand.
Wow.
So I actually got more back because of the delay than I actually paid for the tickets.
Yep.
So now I'm telling my daughter that we will come and visit again once we know that Emirates got a little bit of problems of getting their planes into the air, so we can fly free of charge again. But yeah, but it is sad, Chris, that those type of things are happening, it's happening more and more. I mean, if I have to go down to Cape Town, I got in my car and I drive.
Mm-hmm.
Because with all the hassles, the delays and everything, the inconvenience of flying, getting transport at the place is just for me easier than spend 8-9 hours on the road than going through the flight stuff.
Yeah, they've absolutely sucked all the life and joy out of air transport. It's such a miserable process. I mean, it really started before 9/11, but got exacerbated by 9/11. You know, here, take your shoes off, body cavity searches, all this nonsense. Look, the Israelis have been dealing with that issue for decades, and you don't see these problems with El Al or flights in Israel because their airport security is effective, and they don't take the measures we do here. But not just that, but the airlines around 2007 started putting additional seats in their long-haul flights to and from Africa and to and from the States, from Europe. And so, I'm 6'2", 74 inches. So that's just short of 2 meters, 1.93, I think it is, something like that. I can't sit in a chair on an international flight and not have my knees in the back of the seat in front of me. So I always try for exit rows, but then they start charging extra for exit rows. And then with people who are physically infirm, which is illegal, in the seats because they paid more for it. I'm like, this person can't open the door. I've actually done it. I did on a flight from Lisbon. We actually landed in Lisbon, emergency landing. I had to pull the thing open and extend the chute, but then we never went out. We never went down. They wouldn't let us go because the brakes were on fire. So they're like, no, stay on the plane. But then they brought the little ramp up and we went out the main entrances. But so, I mean, it's so that. And then the other thing is this idiocy of bags. Oh, here, let me tell you a horror story on bags. So I flew to London. I booked it through Expedia with Iberia, this Spanish airline, but it's all code shared. So the flight, there's no Iberia in Harrisburg. It's American. American from Harrisburg to Boston, and then from Boston to London, it was British Air. So, and British Air, same thing coming back, the opposite direction. So I booked the flight, and it said Iberia, first bag free. Okay. I don't have to pay for my bag. That makes sense. I'm going to be gone for 10 days. I shouldn't have to pay to ship my underwear to Europe. Anyway, so then the second bag is $90. I get to the airport at Harrisburg, and I go to check in later in the day after I'd already, so I go there and, or it was in the morning, excuse me. And I walk up to the counter and I show my military retired ID card because we have these requirements in the States now called Real ID, which has biometric data in there so they can scan it. Has to be standardized across the country. My driver's license for the state of Pennsylvania isn't Real ID. It doesn't have any of that in it because it costs $90 and I can get it for $30. I don't need a state Real ID because I have military ID, plus I have a passport. So I show my military ID because it's a domestic trip to Boston. I give it to her and the lady says, sir, you're going to have to pay for the bag. I said, no, ma'am, it's with Iberia, and the first bag is for free. It's code share. So I pulled out the printout from the airline. It says, here, first bag free. And she goes, well, no, it says you're going to have to pay. And then she's trying to help me. It's a black lady trying to help me. And the white lady's sitting in the chair next to her. She's not saying anything. She's just listening, sitting there like this. And the black lady says, oh, but you're military. I think that's free. And then the white lady goes, that's not a military ID card. And I said, yes, ma'am, it is. It's a retired ID card. In fact, all ID cards look like this a few years ago. Now they have different ones for active duty. But I wasn't asking for a free bag for active military. That's my identification to fly with. So she got all pissy, like it was coming out of her pocket. The black lady, meanwhile, goes ahead and processes it, and it spits out the ticket or the sticker. And she goes, "Oh, it didn't charge you." I said, "Well, see, it's not supposed to." So she puts it on the bag, and they take it, and the other lady's all pissed off. So they're going to charge me $74 there to take my bag to London. Well, they made me late, and I missed my flight, and they rebooked it 3 times. I missed 2 successive flights that night in Boston because of the turnaround to do it. So the next morning, I go to British Airways, and I check my bag in. So that'll be $90. $90? No, it's free. I explained to him, and the guy eventually, I was polite to him. He just took it. He said fine. So then when I leave London, they want to charge me £60. So it would have cost me $300 to take my underwear to London and back. That's just insane. How can you expect someone to travel internationally for 2 weeks and not have clothing? That's ridiculous. Include it in the price of the ticket and don't cheat us. I'm so sick of this bag of stuff. So between the extra rows of seats, the surly customer service, the poor execution, the lack of planes, because they took about 40% of the aircraft aren't flying anymore. They're in mothballs in Spain for Europe and in Arizona for the U.S. It's just a total disaster. Traveling is such a pain by air.
Yeah. Maybe they should bring back the steamliners, the steam ships.
Yeah, maybe.
X while you are traveling.
But a steamliner is going to be a little hard for me to get to Uppington. That's not going to work. The Orange River is not.
No, but we can fetch you quite close by. We can fetch you in Luderitz. It's in Namibia, but it's close.
Luderitz is not close. That's like 600 kilometers away.
Okay, but Chris, you must understand, 600 kilometers is close. It's nearby.
You say so. Woo, boy, that's a long way for me. Carlo Voss, who became a subscriber recently, said, I'll make a point to drive up to Uppington if you all plan to get together with Vine and friends in September. It's probably going to be in mid to late August is when I get to Uppington, folks, because what's the time frame for this trip is driven by, number one, the South Africa's nonsensical rules for Corona for traveling. I'll tell you about that in a second. But number two, the Cape Town, the Rugby World Cup for the Sevens is in Cape Town the 9th and 10th or 10th, 11th, 9th, 10th, 11th of September. I'll be in Cape Town for that. So that will be the end of my trip. So I have to swing it all around that. So Uppington will be probably in August. I'll come up there. But the current rules for South Africa for entry, according to the most recent release, is that you must, if you're fully jabbed, no PCR test, you can enter the country. If you're not jabbed, you must have a negative PCR test. Unless you arrive without one, then you can have one at the airport. And if you test positive, It's okay. As long as you don't exhibit symptoms of illness, you can wander about the country. So I don't know how that makes any sense, but what's the point of the test? By the way, the U.S. has just now, on a test basis, rescinded the requirement to have a negative Rona test to enter the U.S. As an American citizen, I had to produce one to come back from London. It cost me 33 pounds. So I've sent the bill to Joe Biden and asked for reimbursement of my 33 pounds.
Yeah. No, well done. But now I think this whole COVID thing is now over.
I don't know. I hope so. I think but they tried that pox. They tried that one.
They are still trying. But the other day I went to my boy got sick and my wife took her to a doctor here, an elderly doctor, and asked him, listen, maybe you should test for COVID. He said, no COVID in Uppington.
I love it. Well, I in order to avoid the YouTube censors, because I don't know what they're censoring these days, I don't say the proper name. I go, pox. And, that's the new one they're trying to push. And people are freaking out about it. I'm like, look, I have been jabbed against smallpox twice in my life. I'm at the end of the baby boom, so I got one of those scar-inducing ones here, and then I got the oral one when I went in the military. So I'm good against smallpox, so I'm not worried about that other one, because the bottom line is that you, just like with cowpox, you have protection against the other one. So, bring it on. I'm not worried about it, and people are freaking out over it, but it doesn't bother me at all because I'm not worried about it. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's the same here.
Yeah.
Because, the one topic I'm very careful not to talk about is the jab, to take it or not to take it.
Oh yeah, you got to avoid that altogether, and I don't really go into that. Yep.
Yeah, I won't take it.
Yeah.
And my family won't.
Yeah.
But look at Justin Bieber.
Did he have it?
He had the jab.
I didn't know he had it.
He actually blamed the jab for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that he's got some kind of like Bell's palsy or something like that, paralysis on his face. Yeah.
But he said it's because of the jab. But when you read about it in the newspapers, they don't say it's because of.
Yeah,
I'm not going to elaborate.
Yeah, well, we probably should just not go near that topic. But besides, I don't like Justin Bieber anyway, so it's not a topic.
No need to.
Yeah, so Johnny Bronkhorst says Uppington is a must visit. Well, thanks, Johnny. That's interesting. It's always been kind of a bridge too far on my travels to South Africa. Of course, those who know my program know that I've been to South Africa about 450 times over the years. I used to live in Gaborone, and so I spent a lot of weekends in Gauteng, either in Rustenburg or more likely in Pretoria or Hatfield, somewhere like that. Also Joburg. So I would get out there quite a bit, but I've never been to Uppington. As I said, the closest I've come is Kimberley, and that was an interesting story there for you, Vine. I think I might have mentioned that before. So I left Gaborone. I was going down for the Tri-Nations contest in Bloemfontein, and I've been so many times across the N4, the Bakwena Highway going down, and I didn't want to go that way. So I thought I'd never been to Kimberley, so I said I'll go down past Ramotswa, and I'll go down to Mafeking, and then down to Kimberley, and then cut across, even though it's a little bit further, but something different. So I get to Kimberley, it's at night, and I'm like, all right, where's this big hole at? Everyone's been talking about, the largest man-made hole in the ground in the earth from the diamond mining. And I'm driving, I can't see. I'm like, this is like, how can I not find this stupid hole? But it's dark, and so I'm looking for instructions. This is before Google Maps and all that stuff. So I finally use my sense of direction, ignore the signs, and actually made the correct turn, and I found my hotel. It was a Protea. And so I go check in the Protea, and I'm like, check in. It's late in the evening, and I get to my room. I get up in the morning, go downstairs for breakfast, and I walk down to where the breakfast is served, and I look out into the big hole. Literally, the Protea sits right on the lip of the big hole. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm looking for this thing all night, and I was right there on top of it. So there's a little museum there. I went to the museum, but I got in my truck. I had a Toyota 4Runner, which is kind of like the Fortuner, except it's a 4.6 or 4.7 liter engine, and it's a left-hand drive, and it's bigger, but it's the same wheelbase. Anyway, so I drove through the Free State, and I was running really low on petrol because I couldn't find a petrol station, and I was too stubborn to turn back in Kimberley. They're all on the opposite side of the road. And as I was going south, and then I went east. So I found some petrol station in the middle of the Free State and some little dorpy out there. I don't know where it was. And I pull in, there's a bunch of Tswana speakers around there because I could chat with them a little bit in Tswana. And I had Springbok flags hanging off my car because I was going to the Tri-Nations game. And all these black South Africans, hey, Bokke, Bokke, Bokke. They were all into it. They loved the fact. And then they realized I was an American, and they were just like, pat me on the shoulder, like, oh, you like rugby? It's a lot of fun. And then I went to Bloemfontein, and in Bloemfontein, it was the most Afrikaners I've ever seen at one place in one time. There were about 48,000 Afrikaners there. I was in a sea of Afrikaners, and people wearing stuffed Springbok heads walking through the crowd. That was an odd sight to see, but it was quite an interesting journey.
No, I can believe that, Chris. No, it's great.
Yeah. What's this? He's talking.
The Free State beat the Bulls in the Currie Cup final on Loftus.
Mm-hmm.
And Ollie Leroux smoked a cigar under the poles.
Yeah.
And the next year, they end up again with the final, but this time the final was in Bloemfontein. So we was also driving down from Pretoria, all dressed in orange, because we supported now any team that plays against the Bulls. So, and we know Johnny du Plessis and Bismarck, and they have organized tickets, so we will sit in front there. Next to the field. So, as we left Joburg, there's a lot of cars that sort of starting to fall in. And that is Blue Bull flags and it's Free State flags and stuff. And so it ends up in an informal sort of race. So now I'm ahead. And the guys are coming behind me straight forward and we are driving, and I hit just as inside the Free State, I hit a traffic
a traffic jam, a traffic jam.
No, a traffic cop.
Oh, traffic cop. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He caught me 165 kilometers per hour. So now he pulled me off.
Okay.
And everybody else came charging by, and now it's all on the routers that, pop, waving. Here the Free State guys, supporters, is now being pulled off. So now this cop looks into the car and he said, well, where are you guys going today? I said, well, we are going to watch the game, Free State against the Bulls, and listen to this guys that's passing me. You can hear them; they are enjoying the fact that I, as a Free State supporter, is being caught. And this cop looked at me and said, "Sir, you can go. There's no more traffic."
Cops.
There's no more traffic. Yeah, cops.
There's no more speed traps.
Yeah, speed traps. That's the word. There's no more speed traps between here and Bloemfontein. You can go. So, yeah, we hit it again. But what a great experience! And that day, the Free State and the Bulls, they draw the game, the match, and that's sad. To draw a final is not nice.
Yeah.
Because everybody arrived there full of news and the flags are waving. And as we left the stadium, they literally draw the flags behind them on the tower. Both the Free State and the Bulls. So it was disappointing to the point that there wasn't a winner. But anyway, yeah, that's my side.
No, that's hilarious. That's fascinating. I was wondering if you went about 240 to catch up and pass them all again once you got back on the road.
No, it was impossible because they are all of them are driving. They want to get to Bloemfontein to the nearest stop,
Of course.
Don't waste time next to the road.
Yeah, exactly. No, getting pulled over by the cops is never a fun thing. Speed traps, oh boy, yeah. No, you got to be careful with those things. Texas has like a 75 mile per hour speed limit, so that's what, about 130, 140. But people go 85 or 90. There's like 5 lanes of traffic, and I'm going 75, and people are like zoom, zoom, right on past me there. So I picked it up and tried to go with traffic. It reminds me, driving between Houston and Dallas. Once you get out of the metropolitan areas and you get into the rural areas, it reminds me of driving in the Highveld, like going from Pretoria down towards the Drakensberg. It reminds me very much like that. The only difference is nobody's burning the grass in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still do that.
Winter time is burning time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've driven through those clouds of smoke. That's dangerous on the highway, man. Whew. But they do it. That's definitely something they do. Yeah, so what's this? From far away, you cannot see the geyser tower, only the glare of the sun from the panels below. Christoph Vang is talking about something. I'm not sure what he's talking about, but yeah. So listen, I really am going to start stuffing money in my furniture because apparently it's an effective way to squirrel away money by the squirrel himself. I mean, how does he survive this? I don't know how he survives it.
Yeah, but you must remember, there was about 2 weeks before Cyril was caught with the money in the furniture. Mm-hmm. There was a lady in the United States who bought a second-hand, a used couch.
Yeah, she found $30,000.
Exactly.
So it's not just Cyril; it's other people too.
Other people too, yeah.
Oh my goodness!
But they gave the money back, huh?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, look, you can shake my couch out and you'll be lucky to find a nickel fall out of it or a couple pennies. It's not going to be $30,000. My goodness, so I was joking around. I was on Big Daddy Liberty's program yesterday. He asked me to come on and I'm like, hang on a second. Let me dig out my chair here. Oh, look, I too have money. Oh, look at this big wad of money here. $2, $3, $4. Woo. Wow, 60 Rand.
Yeah, but 4 million of them.
Yeah, US dollars, 4 million.
You can't even pick it up, Chris.
No, it's too heavy. Even if it's in hundreds, you can't pick it up. That's a lot of bills for hundreds. I mean, that's going to take a lot. I mean, and here's the thing. The thieves are Namibians. So now Namibia's embroiled in this too. Hage Kengab is busy. I do not collude with Cyril Ramaphosa to cover up this crime. I love it. I love it. Namibia's part of it too. It's just crazy stuff.
But the worst part is they paid the thieves.
Yeah, they paid them off. Hush money. And then the idiot, okay, you're going to give money to people who can't afford a bus ticket, and you're going to make them suddenly wealthy to keep their mouth quiet about the theft, or maybe you torture them, who knows, but you're going to pay them off. And then they go and spend the money buying. Yeah, good.
They stole $4 million.
Yeah.
And then they are being paid. Because they stole the $4 million, they're getting paid 150,000 Rand each to keep quiet that they have stolen it. Yep.
So, I mean, that, all the arguments that the leftist liberals in South Africa, white leftist liberals in South Africa want to make to defend Cyril Ramaphosa, like Melanie Verwoerd, saying, well, it was legitimate, but the president's got to tell. No. Okay, let's pretend it's legitimate. Okay, why is it hidden in a couch? That's the first question. Second question is, why were the security services misused instead of reported to the police? Third question is, if it's legitimate, why did you pay off the criminals who stole the money instead of arresting them and putting them in jail? This is dirty, dirty money. Cyril Ramaphosa has been exposed for the corrupt, thieving fraud that he's always been. Now there's a smoking gun. And the irony is this, Vines. This is all coming from within the ANC. The ANC is tearing itself apart from the inside between the radical economic transformation crowd, the few people that support Cyril Ramaphosa, the Zuma clowns. It's all coming out. These people, I looked today in the news. I found 5 more stories of major corruption in South Africa that were exposed today. Every day it's another story. Danville Small, I think his name is, in the Western Cape. He was just arrested for a car theft ring. He's a member of the provincial legislature. I mean, ANC politicians are better thieves or bigger thieves than the actual gangsters these days. Jeez. Yep. Warning Turtle says $4 million is still 40,000 notes if they're all hundreds. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of notes.
I can't even count to 40,000.
Yeah. Well, if it's money, I can. I may not be able to count and do math, but when it comes to cash, I can count that. Yeah, definitely can count. Oh, Wanting Turtle calls him Pablo Ramaphosa after Pablo Escobar. And Grant Swanepoel just told me that this would be 2 Windhoek lager or Windhoek droughts at the pub down the road in Einheitsgebot. Oh, no, he's saying Einheitsgebot quality. Well, if I can get 2 beer for $4, that's a hell of a bargain, because in the States I can't get a single beer for $6 or $8. If you go to a sporting event, it's $12 for a beer. It's crazy. What's that?
No, I'm just thinking about how many beers you can buy in South Africa, but I think you can buy 1.
But he's saying 2. Maybe he's in Namibia. I'm not sure.
You can buy 2. Yeah, he's quite right.
All right. Well, cool. Hey, folks, if you're listening to this program and you're not a subscriber to the channel, please become one. Really appreciate it. If you don't know the story of this channel, I retired as an active colonel from active service in October 2019 while I was at the Rugby World Cup in Japan for a month, covering stories there. Published them online. Missed my golden opportunity for my rugby brand. I could have been doing videos and I would have had a huge audience, but I missed that opportunity. But nonetheless, so I started this channel. I took my existing channel and turned it into one focused on Africa, and grew from 2 to 23,000 subscribers. I had more than Valiant Du Toit did at one point there. I grew so fast. But then YouTube went after me, censored me, shut down my channel, and I started a new channel. But the shadow banning is pervasive, and courtesy of those of you who subscribed here during the stream, I've just finally gone over 6,400 after a little over a year of this new channel. So I appreciate the support. Become a subscriber. I think you get great quality content here. You're going to be hard-pressed to find someone that knows more about South Africa that's not from South Africa, and I'd argue my knowledge and experience in South Africa, I could stack up against most South Africans in the know. And Africa in general. You're not going to find that elsewhere. And we have interesting programs here, like this program, Fortnightly, Fireside with the Colonels, when our schedules don't get confused. We do this every 2 weeks on a Monday. And then also programs like Kenako, The Call of Africa, with Koketso Rezani and Dumo Denga, who join me, 2 black conservatives from South Africa who join me for conversation about politics. And then there's always Answer the Question with Rob Hutchison. Hey, I don't know if you heard this, Viant, because it was an exclusive. I broke the news. The Department of Health in South Africa is accusing Dear SA, the civic organization, of terrorism because they're interfering with the process of public participation in responding to the proposed lockdown regulations to the Health Act. So they're calling them terrorists. Rob Hutchison will be on the program probably on Thursday. We'll talk about that. He's been buried under legal paperwork as the Department of Health is accusing them. I don't know if they filed charges, but they're saying that Dear SA, a peaceful organization that simply seeks to get South Africans to comment on public issues and make them aware of it, is a terrorist organization. You got to love it. When the ANC's backed in a corner, they cry racism or they cry terrorism. And they're usually wrong on both counts.
The terrorism one is a new one, but it's sort of worldwide now becoming a nice thing.
Well, that misinformation, anything the government deems to be misinformation. Mozambique is, the president Nyusi's looking at a bill right now that was passed in May by the legislature, by the parliament, that they can determine anyone that says anything that's misleading about the conflict in Cabo Delgado will be imprisoned for terrorism charges. So free press is gone. You can't talk about Cabo Delgado unless you say only what the government tells you can say. That's a pretty frightening prospect.
Then I better not go to Mozambique again, or not soon anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's the list of countries I can't go back to is growing by the day in Africa. I don't think I'll be all that welcomed by Masisi in Botswana because I've been exposing him since the day he became president. His juvenile, his petulant, childish behavior as president is quite disappointing. He's dragging Botswana into the realm of banana republics. Botswana is now threatened to leave the CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, because they want to sell under Masisi. They want to sell their ivory hoard, and they're angry that they can't sell it because I'm sure they want to stick their fingers in the pocket and get money from the ivory. But they're part of CITES, and they're threatening to leave just because they can't sell the ivory. Zimbabwe's done the same thing, but we expect that. By the way, did you see that Emerson Mnangagwa, the crocodile himself, said that ZANU-PF is entitled to rule into perpetuity in Zimbabwe? They are entitled to always be the ruling party in Zimbabwe because they're responsible for the liberation. You know, I thought Joshua Nkomo and ZAPU were also part of ZIPRA, ZANLA, these two armies were out there. So it wasn't just ZANU, but they seem to have forgotten about Joshua Nkomo.
Yeah, they did. But when you are here, we can drive up to the Galagadi park, and you can actually stick your hand through the fence and be in Botswana again.
Okay, there we go. Without Eric Masisi hunting me down. Yikes.
Yeah,
it's probably about that time for us to wrap up, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah, it's as always, it's been a distinct pleasure. I really, this is one of the things I enjoy the most about this channel, and not just because it's a great conversation and we share a lot, but I think people are enlightened, they learn some things, but also this has become my best viewed program, and I'm very grateful for that. With just 6,400 subscribers, we hit 160 viewers on this stream, which is pretty good for this channel. And it's since I went to London with my not broadcasting every day at the regular time, things were kind of up and down, and I've not gone over 100 viewers on a stream since I came back, and I'm just getting back into it. So thank you to all the viewers. If you're not a subscriber, please become one. It costs nothing. And you know what? You don't even have to get notifications. Just be a subscriber and leave it on your account. But thank you so much. Wyatt, I'll give you a chance for a final word here. Bye, donkey, for joining me once again. It's a pleasure. But any last comments or thoughts?
Yeah, Chris, it's always nice to speak to you and have this chat. And you know, one never know what you are going to talk about, what is the issue of the day, and what is going to jump out or where it's leading. I do not prepare for our chats anything. And I think that's the bonus part of the channel. And I mean, if people pose questions, we will answer it as good as we can. But it's more and more important now, I think, that people start listening to not the formal media, but exactly this type of channel where we talk about what is really going on in the world, number one, and secondly then in South Africa, because it's so important to enlighten people, or at least try to enlighten them as to what lies in the future, the possibilities of that, and what we have to do in situations like this. And I think that is coming out quite nicely on the channel. So for that, I say thank you, Chris. I think you are making a huge contribution to South Africa at this stage.
Well, that is very kind of you. I really appreciate that. And you know, it's ironic because you mentioned that I didn't realize with the old channel, even though this channel is reduced, in I suspect maybe some of those people were just, you know, they saw a broadcast and they became a subscriber and then never really followed it. But so maybe the hardcore viewers are still here. But, you know, I'm surprised to find out that a lot of people in South Africa know who I am. I mean, you know, when I contact people and say, listen, I'd like to interview you, and like, oh, I know who you are, Chris. I'm happy to come on your program. And it's amazing to me that actually my name has been talked about in South Africa, because heretofore, the only occurrence of the Wyatt surname in South Africa that I'm familiar with is Wyatt Street or Wyatt Weg in Durban, about a 100-meter long street next to the British War Museum down there in Durban, named after a British lieutenant who fought in the Boer, yeah. Not the Boer, the Anglo-Zulu War back in 1879. So somebody's just, Erica just become a member. I gotta give her a salute because I do this for all members. Thank you, Erica, for your 12 months. Okay, two people have now asked me to tell you this. Okay, my Rugby Ascendant channel, when people are watching rugby, I do the play-by-play and commentary. They're asking me to ask you to become a subscriber, and then you can put your DSTV on mute and you can listen to me. But anyway, I'm not gonna beg you to do that. But Rugby Ascendant, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can do live streams. I've got 3 World Cups coming up, one in Cape Town, one in New Zealand, and one in England this year that I'm going to, and I need to have the 1,000 subscribers. So I think they're trying to get me to co-opt you to go and listen to it there. But thank you so much. And last comments here, they're coming in. People are saying, what a prescient, I think he means prescient, and informative conversation. It's always a pleasure to join your conversation. Keep up the good work, constructive conversations. Well, thank you for that, Johnny. I know that both of us appreciate your kind thoughts. And then Carlo Voss says thanks to both of you. Good night. And big Wall Street stock market crash as we speak. Yeah, it was down 750 points earlier. I don't know what the current situation is. I'll take a look at it. All right, folks, that's it for Fireside with the Colonels, with Colonel Wynand du Toit and Colonel Chris Wyatt from Uppington and here in central Pennsylvania. And we will catch you guys Oh, probably in 2 weeks. We'll have to look at the calendar, see if we can get back up in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
All right. Cheers. Wyatt, thank you very much. Bye, Donkey.
Thank you, Chris. Have a nice evening.
Cheers.
Stay well. And to all the listeners as well. Bye-bye.
You as well. Cheers.